Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT9, and BT9 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And the deck that I'm going to be looking at today is going to be a brand new iteration on Yellow Hybrids. So Yellow Hybrids is a highly customizable and flexible deck with lots of different packages and some packages that you could run in it, just because, well, for the most part, the core of what Yellow Hybrids is doing is not changing, where you're just trying to play lots of different tamers, and you're trying to use those tamers as value in resource engines to be able to accelerate your game plan, while you're just going to casually use those tamers to go up the stages utilizing our hybrid-based Digimon. And because of that, it leaves a lot of room open for various other tech and tools to be inserted into the deck, depending on the direction that you want to take it. So I'm going to be splashing in a little bit of red just for some extra card draw and extra control that the deck kind of wants. So without further ado, onto the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitamas, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gigimon. So Gigimon is a really fantastic Digitama, mostly because of the level 3 that I'm going to be playing with, just to help us draw extra cards. So if you wanted to run a 5th Digitama, you could, but I want the consistency on the ability, where when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has Guilmon, Growlmon, or Gallantmon in its name, then we get to draw 1 card. And the only rookie that I'm going to be pairing it up with is going to be 4 copies of the promo Guilmon. So the promo Guilmon is really good for extra card draw because he has his own when attacking ability to allow us to draw 1 card. So for literally raising a Guilmon with the Gigimon underneath, when he swings, we're going to be drawing 2 cards off of this rookie while chipping at the opponent's security. Next, onto the level 4s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Kazemon. So Kazemon is one of the level 4 yellow hybrids, so we kind of do just have to run it because of the ability where we could Digivolve her on top of a yellow tamer, as if that yellow tamer was a level 3 Digimon, and that's kind of why we don't really need to run many level 3s in the deck, is because we're just going to be using our tamers as level 3 Digimon to climb our stages with. And then the only other level 4 Digimon I'm going to be running is going to be 4 copies of Zephyrmon. So Zephyrmon is in the deck for very similar reasons why Kazemon is in the deck, just because we could Digivolve it on top of yellow tamers. And on top of that, we get to use its when Digivolving ability, where if a card with hybrid in its traits or Zoe is in this Digimon's Digivolution source, then all of your security Digimon gain plus 3000 DP until the end of the opponent's next turn to try to buff our own security. Even though our security isn't going to be full of a lot of Digimon, it's still just nice when it does come up. And then as far as level 5s go, I'm only going to be running 4 copies of JetSilphymon. So JetSilphymon is an absolutely insane card just because of how powerful and efficient this card is. So even though her stats aren't anything different from your average level 5 Digimon, it's the fact that this Digimon can evolve more efficiently than most level 5s in the entire game, allowing us to easily have access to whatever level 6 we're going to be using. So the ability that lets us do that is when one of our Digimon with a tamer in its Digivolution source Digivolves into this card from our hand, then we get to reduce the cost of that Digivolution by 2, effectively making her Evo for 1. So the whole idea on how we're going to be using this card is we're going to have a tamer sit on a field, Digivolve into our level 4, and then Digivolve from our level 4 into our level 5 for 1, and then Digivolve from our level 5 to our level 6 to be able to pass the turn on to the opponent from that point forward. And the additional benefit for utilizing this card is its when Digivolving ability, where if a card with hybrids in its traits is in this Digimon's Digivolution source, then we get to recover 1. So it's basically unrestricted recovery for us literally Digivolving into this card. Next, onto the level 6s, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Ophanimon Falldown mode. So Ophanimon Falldown mode is in the deck for a very similar reason why we want to run JetSilphymon, is because she has a nice when Digivolving ability, where if this Digimon has a purple Digimon in its Digivolution source, we get to delete one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, which we're not going to be using at all because we're primarily using yellow cards, but we do get the ability where if this Digimon has a yellow card in its Digivolution source, then we get to recover 1. So between this and JetSilphymon, we could essentially go up into a Mega, recover 2, and have a 2-color Digimon with a nice on-delete ability sitting on our field, threatening the opponent. And the on-delete ability is actually pretty good because it gets to help us play a purple or yellow Digimon that's level 4 or lower from our trash for free. So she's going to be replacing herself when we Digivolve up into her, still having a body on field to try to have some constant pressure onto the opponent. And then the last level 6 of the deck I'm going to be using is going to be 2 copies of Sakuyamon. So Sakuyamon is kind of a tech flex spot of the deck. It could really be whatever level 6 that you wanted it to be, or it doesn't even have to be a level 6. You could use these slots for various other cards, but I do like Sakuyamon just because BT9 offers a lot of power and a lot of power plays out of raising. So Sakuyamon is a really fantastic card at shutting that off or trying to at least limit what they could possibly do. So she has this nice ability where during the opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon would move from the raising area to the battle area, then that Digimon gets security tech -3, so it's trying to make that Digimon a little bit worse to use when they're moving it out. And then on top of that, she has a nice ability that also helps us aggress onto the opponent's security. It makes our chip plays a little bit safer and more annoying for the opponent to deal with, just because now we have that Digimon that's going to be consistently chipping at the opponent, because during your turn, all of your opponent's security Digimon get -3000 DP, so that way we have an easier time living through the opponent's security. Next, on to the level 7s, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Dexmon. So Dexmon is an absolutely busted card on how good this card is and all of the different types of decks that we could use this card in. So we are also running Ophanimon Falldown mode just to help us be able to play Dexmon, but most of the time we're not actually looking to Digivolve into Dexmon. We're looking to use him because he has a nice ability that triggers when we play him or when we Digivolve into him. So that ability states that we get to de-Digivolve 1 on all of the opponent's Digimon, then we get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon that's level 4 or lower. So just utilizing this card for the turn is going to act as a really good way to try to delete a lot of the opponent's potential Digimon, or at least try to reduce and limit some of the threats that they could be having. Then on top of that, what's making this card easier to hard play, especially in the mirror, is when this card would be played, you get to reduce its play cost by 3 for each of the opponent's Digimon and Tamers in play. So the bigger the board that they have, the easier it is to play this card to act as a great equalizer. Then his third ability allows us to have some recursive removal as long as he's staying on the field, where at the end of the opponent's turn, once per turn, we get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. So it's just, again, trying to delete a lot of the opponent's potential Digimon to make it easier for us to be able to aggress onto them and them harder to aggress onto us. And then the last Digimon and last level 7 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Susanoomon. So Susanoomon is still the big punch factor that the deck is trying to lean into, just because he's going to be the fastest way for the deck to deal damage outside of consistently trying to chip the opponent out. So what's making him so strong is the fact that he just has a security tech +2, so he's at worst going to be swinging for 3 checks when we utilize him. Then he has a classic level 7 when Digivolving ability to just delete one of the opponent's Digimon outright, acting as some good removal. And we don't necessarily have to rely on us having level 6s on our field to be able to utilize Susanoomon. We could actually use a Tamer as if it was a level 6 Digimon by placing 10 cards with Tamer or Hybrid in its traits from our hand or trash to the bottom of our deck in any order. So ideally we want the game to go long enough where it's going to be from our trash, so that way we could put cards back into our deck so we don't necessarily deck out. And it just allows us to have an easy alternative access at a level 7, not needing level 6s to come out of nowhere and be able to punch the opponent's security relatively hard. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Fireball. So Fireball is a pretty decent card just because we have different ways we could utilize this card. So we could either A, use it to try to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less, acting as a pretty solid control tool for their low-level Digimon, or we could use it B, if a Digimon wasn't deleted by this effect, then we get to draw 2 cards, so that way we have some pretty decent level of cheap card draw in the deck. Next, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Reinforced Memory Boost. So you can't play a yellow deck without Reinforced Memory Boost just because of how good this card is. So its main ability states that we get to reveal the top 2 cards of our deck, place 1 of them on the top of our security stack face down and the other into our hand, and then this card goes into the battle area for its delay ability to gain us 3 memory at a later turn. So the 3 memory is making this the strongest memory boost in terms of the instant tempo that it can provide on a later turn, and the fact that we get to not only replace this card, but add a card into our security stack, just basically make it a Holy Wave on steroids. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Holy Flame. So Holy Flame is a card we would prefer to sit in our security rather than use it in our hand. So the ability that it has, if we're using it in our hand, is one of the opponent's Digimon gains security tech -3 until the end of the opponent's next turn, which isn't an amazing debuff. It just helps protect our security for another turn. But what we are trying to utilize this card for, and the ideal way to use it, is out of our security, because its security ability states that all of the opponent's Digimon gain security tech -1 until the end of their turn, and because this is a blanket fog effect that affects the entire field and all Digimon that are coming in the battle area from anywhere, makes it just the most ideal card in our security to help protect the rest of our security by taking away their potential attacks. And then the last option of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Sunrise Buster. So Sunrise Buster is the primary reason why I actually want to lean into red, because of how strong this card is. So for the low cost of 5, you have to have a yellow and a red source on your field, which isn't hard because, well, we're a yellow deck and our Digi-Eggs are red. And we also have a red-yellow Tamer to help us utilize this card even more effectively. So it's not really hard to utilize this 2-color option, and the effect we're trying to use is that we may play a red or yellow Tamer from our hand for free, and then one of the opponent's Digimon gets -3000 DP for each red and yellow Tamer we have in play. So it not only is helping us play our Tamers, which most of our Tamers cost 3 or 4, so it's only actually costing us 1 or 2 to gain that removal type of ability, which, if we have a wide field of Tamers, could delete a wide variety of different targets. And then its security ability is another really potent security threat where it activates its main, so we get to have more ways to be able to play our Tamers, which is usually what Yellow Tamers wants, just because sometimes hard playing our Tamers is a little bit slower than what we want, and we want to try to figure out ways to accelerate that game plan, and this just helps us do that. Next, on to the Tamers. The 2-color Tamer that I'm going to be running to help play our red cards is going to be 4 copies of Tai and Kari Kamiya. So Tai and Kari is a duo Tamer in both colors and helps us gain additional resources, because at the start of our turn, if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to gain 1 memory, and if the opponent has 3 or fewer cards in their security, we also get to gain a memory. So just having low security just makes us gain lots of additional memory, which at worst we could gain 1 memory off of this card just because we could chip the opponent out relatively early and effectively, and if they're not a yellow deck, then they really don't have a good way of healing and recovering, so that'll just help turn this card's memory gaining ability online. Then on top of that, it has a nice secondary ability that's leaning into what Sakuyamon is kind of trying to do, where during your turn, when one of your red or yellow Digimon attacks, we get to suspend this Tamer to give all of the opponent's security Digimon -2000 DP for the turn. So between the 3000 that Sakuyamon is debuffing by and the 2000 that this is debuffing by, 5000 DP debuff in the opponent's security is a pretty sizable debuff, making our swings that much safer. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of TK. So TK is still going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixing Tamer, so if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll just always hard set it to 3 to try to make our plays as consistent as we possibly can. Then on top of that, he has a really good on-play ability that's still acting as one of the best consistency tools for the deck to use, where we get to look at our security stack, and then we get to reveal 1 card from among them and add it into our hand, and if that card was yellow, then we get to recover 1. So it's just helping us use our security as an additional resource, on top of the fact that if we have extra TKs on the field, we could use them as Digivolution points into our hybrids, just because we don't need more than 1 memory fixing Tamer on the field at a time. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of TK and Kari. So TK and Kari is still just that good of a duo Tamer for us to be using to gain a lot of additional memory. So at the start of our turn, if we have fewer cards in our security than the opponent, then we get to gain 2 memory. And that 2 extra memory could help us make more powerful plays depending on the current state of the game. Then on top of that, what we're really trying to use this card for outside of the memory is a little bit of extra control, where during your turn, when your yellow Digimon attacks, we get to suspend this Tamer to give one of the opponent's Digimon minus 1000 DP. So this is just a good, easy way to help us add some extra control to some of our cards. And then the last tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Zoe. So Zoe is going to be acting similar to TK, where it has a nice on-play ability where we get to search our security stack up for a card with hybrid or 10 warriors in its traits, reveal it and add it into our hand, and then if we do, we get to recover 1, so it's just helping us dig out more specifically for our hybrid-based Digimon, and on top of that, she does have an inheritable ability for our hybrids to actually take advantage of, where during the opponent's turn, all of your security Digimon get plus 3000 DP, which isn't a bad ability, it's just not super amazing either, but we care mostly at the fact that it's just helping us look for our hybrids to make our deck a little bit more consistent. And then there's just a ton of different things that you could do with the deck, just because Yellow Hybrids has enough room to be able to customize it to fit whatever needs that you need it to do, just because of the Yellow Hybrid package is the only real important thing, and everything else is kind of a flex. So if you wanted to, you could swap out the red low end for a blue low end, still have some good level of card draw because of the Jamming Vmon and the Demi Vmon and Upamon egg combo, to be able to run a nice blue splash to help us draw cards and be aggressive with. And then we also have Magnamon as a really good card to utilize either offensively or defensively. Then on top of that, we have some blue options we could think about adopting. Then if we wanted to still maintain a little bit of a red splash while including in the blue splash, then we do have Matt and Sora as a good bridge tamer to use just because it's another 2-color tamer for us to gain extra resources off of when we're utilizing our cards. Then as far as red options go, we have a slew of different red removal options that we could use to try to delete the opponent's Digimon and control their field. And if we wanted to, we could lean a little bit heavier into a sub-red hybrid package, because if you wanted to red hybrids, you could as well, or you could just run their option to help us deal some additional damage in the form of Atomic Inferno. And then to help round out cards that we could utilize to act as some good red sources, we do have Rise Greymon X Antibody for us to use as a good level 5, acting like a pseudo level 6. Then Yellow has a slew of different really powerful level 6 Digimon for us to be running. And to go along with a little bit of a yellow low end, we could think about running Salamon as a fantastic rookie to help us draw some extra cards. Or if you just want another generically good yellow rookie just to help round out what yellow rookies we could be using, we do have Patamon that's interacting with DP reduction, which is still something that we could possibly utilize in the deck. And we do have a slew of different DP reduction based abilities and options in yellow for us to utilize. Then as far as some other really good tamers that we could run Koni for some extra control and memory management. We could run Kari as a supporting memory fixing tamer that also helps and interacts with us recovering. Or if we want to lean a little bit into green, just because you could already be playing Rapid Bond, then we do have TK and Izzy to act as a good duo tamer for us utilizing our green Digimon as well. And because we would be playing into yellow-green, or could be playing into yellow-green, that just makes Rapidmon an even more desirable card to utilize. And the green rookie that we could use is going to be the Terriermon sub-package, or Terriermon cards, just because, well, Rapidmon's already playing around with Terriermon, and Terriermon is a good memory blocker, which yellow currently doesn't have. And green has access to a couple of really good and cute and cheeky removal options as well. Or we could forego all of that and just run a purple sub-package, just because we have some good purple tamers that we could use, and we have some really good purple level 6s that could digivolve off of yellow as well, for us to try to round out what our deck can possibly do, like Junomon to be able to grab back any Digimon from our trash. Then purple has some really good removal options for us to utilize as well, and then we also have a card like Chaos Degradation and Flame Hellscythe as some really good 2-color options that are in purple and yellow for us to utilize. And the purple tamer that we could think about utilizing it to help round out the purple package would be Kari Kamiya, just because Kari Kamiya is a very easy tamer for this deck to utilize. And if you wanted to, you could even think about utilizing a black splash for black removal options and cards like Zephyrmon. But between yellow hybrids already still being one of the strongest and most efficient ways to play yellow, on top of all of the packages and sub-packages that you could include inside of it, just make it a very appealing deck to be playing in various different forms, and it's still going to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest, yellow deck to play in BT9. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.